Josh, you were incredible in Trap, man. I really enjoyed your work in this movie.
Thank you.
So in Trap, you play Cooper, serial killer, father.
Yes.
And the family and the tension with the family I found to be very, very interesting, which made me wonder. If you found out you had a serial killer in your family, do you turn them in or do you cover for them?
Well, it depends on who it is. How much do I like them?
That's right. That's the question, right? Like, I'm like, well, if it was my mom, you know,
don't say that. You gotta turn off the cameras before you make a decision on that.
Exactly. But no, the family dynamic was awesome in this movie.
Thank you.
And having a family and playing a role like this yourself, I'm curious, when you're done with the role, is there like a process you have to go through to kind of wash it off?
Actually, you know what? This one was pretty dark, but it's not. Kids don't allow you the time to sort of like go through your own stuff and like worry about your day in the way that I would have before I had kids. So it just necessarily come home and there are things to do. Like I got to cook dinner, or I gotta put them to bed, or I gotta change a nappy or whatever. Sorry, diaper. I live in the UK. Nappy's diaper in the UK, and I, they take you right out of all that stuff that you're thinking about. And I think it's a great thing because then you get to kind of just completely reset without having to worry too much about it. And there's some residual stuff that sticks with you because it's really dark psychology that we're dealing with this character, and everything else is a put on, so like all the stuff with, the daughter and the wife, and that's all just facade until maybe he realizes that some of it's actually struck a chord in him, and like it's an interesting journey for the character, and it's also interesting as an actor to be able to play that. But it's not something you want to live with every day. So,
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, my favorite, I don't want to give away my favorite moment in the film, but I think you'll know what I'm talking about. My favorite moment is a moment where you give a compliment to somebody after doing like that. I thought the performance in that moment was fantastic, but another fun question I got from that is, what is the strangest way a fan has ever come up to you and given you a compliment?
During this film, while I was shooting, some of the extras, because there were a lot of extras, were just milling around in between shots, and I was like going over my stuff, and one came over to me and he said, "Don't worry, you're doing a good job." Like really encouragingly. It was like, no, you're gonna be good in this. And I was like, why is he saying this to me? I thought I was doing a great job. Like, what is it? He was like really trying to console me for all the horrible stuff I'd just been doing on camera. And I don't know, maybe he was right. Maybe I'd had a couple of bad takes or something. But he seemed concerned. And then I became very concerned because I was like, Knight, am I messing everything up?
Right.
Like, why do the extras think I'm terrible in this movie?
Yeah, all of a sudden you're like, wait, should I? Should I be worried about?
Exactly. So that was him. It wasn't necessarily a compliment, but it was him encouraging me, and I felt terrible about it.
That's funny, man. That's a good story.
Yeah.
Your character is expertly followed by a profiler, and I assume in getting ready for this role, you guys may have researched serial killers and the type of person this Cooper character is based on. Did you base it on anybody specifically, or what kind of stuff did you learn that you found to be really interesting about those type of people?
Well, I mean, there are lots of interesting aspects of people with psychopathy, and like the amount of kind of serial killers that are willing to talk to reporters about like what they did and why they did it. It's amazing because they want recognition. They want to be out there. But also, the thing that most people who are writing about them will say is that they're incredibly charming in person, and you almost think you doubt many times over the course of talking to them that they could be the ones that do these horrible things because they have. They've necessarily spent their whole life trying to convince people that they're not these monsters, right? And they still don't get away. They never get away from that, even when they're in prison. And they want to put you at your ease, and they want to you're more manipulatable when you're at your ease. So, that part was incredibly useful for this movie because we need him to be charming, and we need the audience to go along with him. So it needs to be convincing, and that was kind of the crux of it.
And then as soon as he kind of lets the killer out, I feel like Knight had a way of making your eyes, like he found a way of lighting your eyes that made everything so dark.
Oh, really?
Did you notice that on set? Was that like an intentional thing that he was telling you about?
He didn't tell me about it, but there's something, I'm 46 years old as of yesterday. It's just my birthday, thank you very much. There's something more veiled about my eyes right now anyway. They're not as bright as they used to be. So maybe it was just naturally my look on those days. I don't know. Hey. But I think Knight had a pretty good sense of how he wanted things to progress visually, and I really like the thing that he did with just half the face.
Yes.
I can't wait for audiences to
Oh man,
get
the
into this.
cinematography, and there's a couple shots of like the profile and you in the background. Oh, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do have one off-topic question for you. I'm from Comic Book. You've been open about turning down the Superman role in the past, so I have to ask: has your stance on those sort of roles changed? Because there's even like a Doctor Doom rumor. I don't even know if that makes its way to you. But
I haven't heard that rumor, but my relationship to it is exactly what it was. If it's a good filmmaker and it's going to be a good role, like I would do any genre. It's not necessarily about the genre. At the time that just wasn't what my interest was. I'm always trying to, as an actor, I've always tried to subvert expectations or just change what I'm doing for myself. And at that time, people saw me in these heroic movies and wanted me to keep doing heroic parts, and I wanted to play. At the time I played an autistic man who falls in love with an autistic woman in a movie called Mozart and the Whale. I wanted to stretch myself, and I continue to try to stretch myself. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what directors come out of the woodwork and see if there's something good for me out there. But right now I'm just super happy to be able to work with Knight and Chris and all the great directors.
Is there anything you geek out on personally?
Just generally?
Yeah, like what do you most look forward to seeing or reading or?
I always but see, the thing is, like, I've always been a fan of Knight's, and that's not just for me saying this to you for the sake of the movie. Original filmmakers are so few and far between these days, and like to be able to kind of push through the system and make original movies for a large audience and have them released in a large way, it's so rare. And I've been able to work with a couple directors like that recently, and I just love the fact that he's still doing it, and he's doing it really well, and it's a high concept. Fun for the audience, but also really psychologically interesting, so fun for me as an actor. I'm a big fan, and I'll see everything Knight does, and hopefully I'll be able to work with him again.
Knight, the tension you craft in Trap is incredible.
Thank you, brother. Yeah.
Everyone is talking about Shyamalan twists, of course, whenever you have a movie coming out. Trap, you advertise sort of the reaction, the mystery itself. The killer is Josh Hartnett's character right out of the gate in the trailer. Was there ever a version of this movie where you considered making the serial killer at the concert a mystery and kind of revealing something like that in the end?
No. For me, when I thought of the idea, that is the concept, because the actual interesting and wicked part of the movie is you are him. Whereas, that was the thing that made me want to do it, because we've seen a million, stories about serial killers, but to say you are him, and this is what life is like for you on the day that you might get caught.
Yeah, the villain is the protagonist.
Yes, it's both the antagonist and the protagonist.
Exactly.
So very interesting. Yeah. And so the good guys at points are the antagonist, and you're like, how did I get here on this side of this argument?
Like, you almost have us rooting for him, even though we know this is not the good guy, but we're like, I kind of want to see him continue to evade all this.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really cool. I found some of your camera work in this movie to be really cool, whether it was the shot of the profiler in focus and then Josh as Cooper all the way in the back, both in focus. I want to start with that. How did you pull that shot off?
That's a split diopter, that shot you're referencing, where Haley's in the foreground in this kind of iconic Hitchcockian kind of bun, and the older lady who's like surveying the crowd, and then Josh in the background on a stairs kind of staring at her, and so you split it so both are in focus.
And that was really cool. And I'm going to stay technical with you for one more. Do you have an entire arena lit by iPhones at one point, it seems? And also, one thing I noticed is Josh, when he kind of embraces the Cooper killer side of the character, his eyes get so dark. It's so cool. So which was harder to light, an arena full of iPhones or a villain's eyes, so that he felt so dark and mysterious in those moments?
Well, Seo is the cinematographer. Sayampu, he's very naturalistic and knows film really well. So he knows how to expose, especially in arena, that the lights that are coming from the stage are the way we light it. So sometimes it gets dark, and then the light comes on, and you see something, that pulsing that's happening. We like that naturalism, and then when everybody's camera phones come on, a different thing happens. It almost blows out because it's so low, the light's so low in there. And then the same thing with Josh, who's experiencing the thing. Sometimes it goes dark and comes on him naturally with whatever. If there's a girl's iPhone that goes near him, it just comes on him. And all of those kind of, you're searching for his emotions in there. So we found found it really beautiful to be naturalistic.
That was really cool. It was really cool. And you finance your own movies, which I find awesome. Gives you a lot of creative freedom. I also assume that means you're literally, from a business perspective, literally more invested than a lot of directors sometimes.
Yeah.
So in a crowded landscape like the summer of 2024, like you have Deadpool coming out, and then after it you have Borderlands and things like that. All those decisions are being made. How much of the business side of this influences your creative process, and even like right up till today when you're getting ready to release? Like, how does that factor in, given that you are behind it financially too?
I mean, it's always how do you release a movie, when and how, we're original movies. So these are rare birds.
Exactly.
And so how do I get your attention when it's so much easier to say number 2, number 3, and say a title that you've heard before, with so much attention, everyone's vying for your attention. In 2024, it's so much easier for you. Like if I want to get, let's say, a nurse who works so hard and wants to go to a movie, and she sees my trailer or sees something, and she goes, oh, that's interesting. It's harder for her to hold on to it and remember it 3 weeks later and go. And that's the plight of the original movie. It's so much harder. Even if her intention was, she's forgotten, and it's harder to stick. Whereas if she hears Deadpool 3 or something, she goes, oh yeah. Yeah, it's easier for her with all the attendance. So that's the struggle, and it's the challenge for us, the original movies. And so you pray that the circumstances work out for us. But I do think it's just my thing to make original movies, and I hope there's a place always for some place for us.
Absolutely. I mean, it also feels like a pendulum. Like, franchise movies are always going to be franchise movies, but it feels like the pendulum's kind of swinging to people like Oppenheimer. I mean, Barbie, based on Barbie, of course, but an original film. Like these, so many movies are blowing up because they're original movies, and people that like the appetite is really strong now, I think.
I hope so. I hope so. I do think that they want it. I can feel it. It's just, can they hold on to it to get there?
Absolutely. Well, happy to help if we can. And,
Thank you.
But my last question for you: we talked at Knock at the Cabin. We talked about this. I've mentioned your twists. I feel like these are 2 in a row I've watched now where there's not a big crazy, you couldn't have seen this coming twist. It's just tension builds the story, things like that. Does that mean you're leading us into a movie where eventually you're going to rip the rug out from under us again?
Oh, it's I never think of it as twists. I think of it as kind of unfolding with the characters as the characters are learning amazing things. So in Trap, you're with Josh, and as each thing happens, you're like, he's getting shocked at where he is and what's happening to him, and the causes of this, you're learning it with him.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. Thank you so much for talking with me.
Thank you,
I'm
brother.
a huge fan.
Thank you.
Saleka, you were awesome in Trap. The movie is so tense the whole time. Oh my, how was set?
Set was so fun.
Okay.
Yeah, it was so fun.
So Josh wasn't actually trying to okay.
I mean, when we're watching him do his takes, it's like everyone's holding their breath and on the edge of their seats. But yeah, incredible.
He's really so good. But you're great. Okay, we have to talk about you in this movie. You are a pop star as Lady Raven.
Yes.
Being a pop star is more than making music. It's making yourself a whole brand, having a presence. I'd love to hear about how, your experience with music helped you kind of say, hey, this is how she should move. This is what she should do in addition to developing the music.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the music was a huge element and kind of the foundation for everything, and then led to what's the style of costumes, what's the style of choreography, and the stage and all of that kind of stuff. And the music is pop music, but it has a lot of darkness to it, has a lot of edge to it, and a lot of different influences, which I love, which is jazz music, R&B music, Indian and Latin influences, and kind of this tinge of international feel to it, which was really important to me.
Has playing Lady Raven now and going through the process you just described influenced your work as a musician when it's not for a movie?
Definitely. I mean, I think writing for film and television is a great exercise in kind of getting out of your own head, because you're not thinking about yourself. You can't think about yourself. You're writing through another character. And so if there's like a feeling that I maybe wouldn't write about in my own song, I get to express it through her, and it's amazing. So I really want to take that with me.
That sounds like such a cool artistic process.
It
That's
is.
Awesome.
It's fun.
Like, what a rare opportunity.
Yeah.
That's cool. Did you film like in a real arena?
Yes.
Was it full of people? How many?
It was pretty full. I mean, not the entire thing, because, it was mainly like what you see on the camera. They filled it up, for the audience that would be there.
So they would have extras. Were you performing and there's extras right in front of you? Was that like a real thrill of like a musical performance?
It felt like a real show. Like almost like every day coming to work was like, we're putting on a show, and the kids were screaming and they're singing the lyrics, and it was just so much fun.
That's cool. That's so cool. Okay, now we started talking about Josh. I would like to go back to working opposite Josh, because he had even like the look in his eyes would
Yes.
change when he was sort of embracing the killer side of Cooper.
I don't know how he did it. It's so good.
And you guys have a couple really intense scenes. I'm not going to
Yes.
spoil anything for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, but some of those scenes, like, you guys really get into it.
Yeah.
How did you guys kind of prepare for moments like that? Where, hey, was there like boundaries established? Was there like,
Yeah.
hey, what were the conversations going into this?
We rehearsed a lot for the film, and my dad always kind of does that with his actress. He treats
Mm-hmm.
it almost like a theater show where you rehearse the scenes many, many times, and we talk through where the character's at in each moment. But shooting it, there's just more intensity like there, which I hadn't expected. And so, like, you know, some of those scenes you're referring to, like, felt very extreme in the moment, more so than they did in rehearsal, which is a beautiful thing to feed off of. And in those moments, he felt scary. He felt really like the serial killer that I was scared of. And then the second the scene's over, he's like, oh, are you okay? I'm like, how are you doing? And he's so sweet. So it was nice to, have both of those things, feel really in it, and then also feel very comfortable with, my dad and Josh there.
Did you guys do anything to like make sure, like, because I know sometimes some actors be like, we're going to stay a little bit separate because we're going to be enemies in the movie, or was everybody just kind of hanging out and being friends?
No, we were all so friendly. It was just a love fest.
That's awesome. I meant to ask earlier when I was talking about the music of Lady Raven, were there any real life figures that you kind of based, whether it's her appearance, her music, her
Yes.
choreography on, and who were they?
Music, not really. I mean,
Okay.
music was very much from me. I would say the aesthetic, we were inspired by a few people. One was Rihanna, and kind of some of her, like, the way that her choreography and her dancers and the color blocking and her sets and all that kind of stuff, incredible performances. And then Rosalia was another one, choreography and how she kind of blends her culture with pop music and flamenco and all of these kinds of things. And the choreography, like, insinuating that, but easy to follow along with. So those were two.